It's summertime, obviously, and people are hopefully drinking beer, enjoying the metal and all that stuff. And everybody who is not a poser or wannabe metalhead also knows that a lot of us, especially old school metalheads, yes, we go beyond metal, liking some music which is not your typical cup of tea when it comes to, well, being a metalhead and all. So in this video I was thinking 5 songs which are not metal originally but are covered decently, mind you, by a metal band. This is a series I hope to continue with further episodes, already episode 2 in the making, and I'm gonna recommend you certain songs which, like I said, were not originally metal but were covered by a metal band in a good fashion, in a way that it actually brings something original, even unique to the whole song being covered, yet at the same time you will recognize it's not really a metal song to begin with. So 5 songs per episode. Let's start in alphabetical order, and I will first talk about the cover, then I will compare it to the original one, and I hope you will check these out when you're having your summer party, drinking beverages and all with your friends and alike. So first let's head to Carpathian Forest from Norway, obviously a well-known black metal act with its very unique style in music. Now in 1998 they decided to do a brave cover song where a lot of other bands are like, okay, we're a metal band, we'll cover a metal song. You know, like black metal or death metal bands going for some old school heavy or thrash metal song. Well, Carpathian Forest went to something like post-punk, a Therion cover, which is a peculiar one because A Forest is a very dark song. When the Therion did it, well, it's quite different what a Carpathian Forest did with that. Carpathian Forest turned the rather nice song into very recognizable one. It's not really a Carpathian Forest sounding song, but it's also very fitting for the whole album, being the end track and all. I mean, you get the very dark mood there with some black metal reminiscent, but yet still it doesn't really sound like some harsh, bass-driven black metal song. Whereas the original one is of course way more, how to say, approachable, easy listening if you will. I mean, it's not really the happiest song by the Therion, but still quite something different when Carpathian Forest did it. So A Forest is a definitely song, just with the namesake and all, A Forest with Carpathian Forest. I think it's one of the best metal covers of all time. That is, metal cover being not non-metal band originally. Check it out if you haven't done it so far. It's a really nice made cover, and personally I prefer the cover version more than the original one, even though that is pretty cool still as well. With black metal theme we go on, even though Enslaved hasn't really been black metal for decades now, but what started as Viking black metal has evolved into something different. And in 2017 they decided to cover What Else Is There, done by Rauta. Now Rauta is a curious band because what I've been listening to, it only like one album or so, and just because of this one particular song which actually features the Knife vocalist from Sweden. So this is not a typical Rauta song to begin with, but quite something else. And what Enslaved did with that, well, they turned it into a metal song. Now, if you really think about it, if you really know true Enslaved's course of action, you could say, yeah, it doesn't really sound like Enslaved, I mean, like as if they wrote the song, but it's very Enslaved-like and very fitting for their nowadays style. Whether you call it third or fourth wave of Enslaved, it's up to you totally, because I mean they have gone through these different eras back in the days already. And 2017 album when E came out, a really good album by the way, they had this cover song, I think only as a later on addition, a bonus track or something else. Like here it says a limited edition digipack. And I think it wasn't even the original one, though, so this is kind of like a new version of that. And here it is, mentioned as bonus track, making the album, this version that is, over 60 minutes and all. Now, they did incredibly good work with the What Else Is There song, which is really great, melancholic and even sad pop song originally. It's actually one of those pop songs I've listened to many times, sometimes even a few times in a row, because the mood is really unique. Like I said, it's not a good example of what Rauta is doing, and most of the stuff what I've been listening to isn't really my cup of tea. But this particular song is really beautiful with its sad and melancholy, you know, defining the whole song. Enslaved version pales in comparison if you ask me, even though I like Enslaved a lot. But this cover song makes so much sense. I mean, it's really, really nicely done, paying homage to the original one. And at the same time, it doesn't really copy-paste it like, okay, we do the original version and all that stuff. Check it out, and I hope you like it. It's different, but still, both versions are worth listening to. Now, maybe the most peculiar of all songs on this video is when Horna decided to cover Rauli batting Somerjoki, a famous Finnish rock and roll star who died decades ago, had a very distinguished sound, unique style, was a very loved artist, but his music was quite light in the terms of rock and roll and all. I mean, we're not talking about hard rock or heavy metal, we're just talking about where Schlager and rock and roll music kind of a meet. So I would call it definitely rock and roll music, but I mean, I get it if people are like, okay, you're misleading us. It's not even rock and roll. It is old school rock and roll, for fuck's sake. Let's get it on with it. Now, when Horna decided to do the cover song, which was released in 2018 on Kuolleiden Kuu EP, they did Tähdet Tähdet, meaning stars, stars, literal translation. And this song originally is not, like I said, it's not really heavy because it's a kind of a rock and roll song. Finnish rock music, and while it's not exactly super dark, when you see, more like listen Horna play that, I mean see in terms of stage and all, they did a very, very nice cover. It's almost like how you take a rock and roll track and turn it into a very good black metal track, which could be really like Horna's own making. It's just like, how does this make sense? It makes a lot of sense when you hear it. It's like a good example how just anything with enough skill and talent and vision can be done, like from one genre, which is totally different, to another one. And I think this is a really, really cool cover song. Like I said, it's not that different from Horna's own material, really. If you just like listen to it among other Horna tracks, you might not even figure it out. But when you compare it to the original one, you're like, wow, this is different. So which one I prefer? Horna version, of course. Not saying Rauli batting Somerjoki is anything like a bad one. It's just not type of music I really enjoy. So this is one you should check out if you're a black metal head. For others, it might be really too shocking. Then we go to UK with Paradise Lost, one of my all-time favorite bands which I fell in love with in early 90s. And one of the reasons has always been it's melancholic, it's dark, it's bleak. Come on, it's from UK. They almost lots of tragic things and the kind of a dramatic sense that no other country can really, just recreate. And with this particular release, which is also a reissue of Symbol of Life, in my opinion, a great album, 2002, they had a couple of cover songs. What really kind of got stuck in my mind was this Bronski beat cover from early 80s, 1981 or so. And while this is a typical 1980s kind of a dance music, there's certain kind of a melancholia that is very much present there. I mean, it's female vocals, it's a kind of a upbeat tempo and all. But if you really listen to the melodies right there, they're like, okay, this is not exactly a happy story. It's not like a love story, dance song, whatever disco you want to call it. So it's very fitting for bands like Paradise Lost, who then again added more heaviness, more tragicness, more, bleakness to the overall song, making it like a perfect match made in heaven. At the same time, it really sounds like a Paradise Lost song, but you also in a way, it also sounds different. When you listen to the original Bronski beat cover, which I personally gotta say, I actually like it, this is actually a nice thing to say about it. Both versions, once again, stand apart, separately, work nicely. But how Paradise Lost actually made it their own, so to speak, it actually works very, very well. For the reasons mentioned, the bleakness, the certain melancholia present there. So, very, very, very nice cover song in my opinion. And of course, I prefer the cover song more than the original one. But I mean, I get it if some people would say, yeah, well, I like Paradise Lost, I prefer the original one. So, can go both ways, obviously. Last but not least, in fact, this could be my favorite of all these covers in this episode. And mind you, I love all of these. That's why I decided to start with this top 5. Summer Night City, originally done by famous Swedish pop group ABBA. Everybody knows ABBA. ABBA is like more than a band, it's a phenomenon. And as such, a lot of those songs have been heard in many, many different places and plays and all that stuff. And some people obviously love, worship beyond that with ABBA. I don't. I never got to actually like it, while I totally understand their talent and skill and success and all that stuff. I got my dose of ABBA when I was a teenager. Never got to exactly like that. But Therion, on the other hand, around 1995 when I entered my military service, was something that kind of seeped into my life from a friend with, I think, third album back in the days. And that's where my story with this symphonic, often operatic metal came into my life and brick by brick started making impact. Now, I like old Therion, but I like a little bit more modern Therion a bit more, where Secrets of the Runes from 2001 being one of my favorite Therion albums of all time. And they did wonderful cover. I mean, I even remember this nice music video they made about Summer Night City. And that worked so goddamn well. Now, of course, it's a Swedish band covering a Swedish song. You might say there's certain kind of understanding, much like Paradise Lost with Bronski Beat and all. There's this certain level of similarity with both versions. I mean, ABBA's cover is kind of a bombastic in terms of being ABBA song, a pop song, but where Therion enters to play heavy guitars and the dramatic orchestrations and everything, female vocals included, come into play as well. And I must say, I was back in the days, and I'm still kind of like mind blown about the precision, the atmosphere, everything with this cover song. I think it's one of those examples. If there is a perfect cover song, this would be it. Why so? Because it kind of takes all the elements, is able to understand and digest it at their own elements and not destroying the original in the mix, but making it just more wholesome. Think about a beautiful building, and then you want to recreate it with better materials, better understanding of things. You make it bigger and more massive, and at the same time also more beautiful. I think it sounds like too good to be true, but in fact, original one is a good song, that coming from non-ABBA fan, and then you have this even better metallic version of the same song, and I'm like, this is very, very good. Mind you, I have some really good songs for the episode 2 in the series. These are just the first 5 songs I basically came up with when I was thinking about this. What could be interesting for your summer party in terms of metal, but kind of going beyond the original music of given style. So what you have here is symphonic metal. You have the bleak, melodic, tragic metal from UK. You have a couple of black metal bands, and you have one progressive Viking metal act. So quite different. And of course you can go beyond these suggestions or recommendations I'm giving you here. Also, if you have good ideas, which metal cover songs that is made by a metal band of non-metal covers you have in your mind, drop in them the comment section below, and I will listen to them, and if they're good, I will mention them in the future episodes of this series. Currently I have probably some 20 plus songs to be featured, and 5 songs per episode. Let's see where this goes. Let's see if we can educate one another with some cool cover songs. Let's enjoy the summer. Now, until next episode, I hope you enjoy this selection, and if not, well, too bad. Off you go.